Let me ask you something. And before you answer, I want you to sit with the question honestly for a moment, rather than rushing past it the way most people do. Have you recently seen a blood test result where the creatinine number was flagged, where it sat just above the reference range or significantly above it, and you stared at that number and felt something shift quietly inside your chest? Did a doctor use words like kidney function or GFR or early chronic kidney disease? And did those words land differently than you expected, heavier than the appointment itself prepared you for? Did you take the paperwork, nod through the follow-up instructions, drive home, and then spend the next several evenings quietly searching for answers that either frightened you into paralysis or left you more confused than when you started? If that is your experience right now, in July 2026, you are not alone. You are not even close to alone. Elevated creatinine is one of the most common findings in adults over 60. It is also one of the most consistently mismanaged moments in modern healthcare, not because physicians do not care, but because the appointment is 12 minutes long and the explanation of what creatinine actually means, and more critically, what you can do about it starting today, rarely fits inside that window. People are handed a number, told it is elevated, scheduled for a follow-up in 3 months, and sent home with almost no practical roadmap for the time between now and that appointment. That gap is exactly what this conversation is designed to fill. In the next several minutes, 5 specific, science-grounded actions are going to be laid out clearly. Things you can begin implementing today, this week, before your next blood test, that research consistently shows can support kidney function, help bring creatinine levels down over time, and meaningfully slow the progression of damage that elevated creatinine is warning you about. This is not a promise of reversal or cure. It is not a replacement for your physician's guidance. What it is the calm, evidence-based roadmap that the 12-minute appointment rarely provides. The information that empowers you to walk into your next appointment as an informed and active participant in your own care, rather than a passive recipient of someone else's decisions made without your full understanding. If your creatinine is severely elevated or your kidney function is significantly compromised, please work closely with a nephrologist. The steps covered here are supportive and evidence-informed, but serious kidney disease requires professional medical management alongside everything discussed here. For everyone else, let us get into it immediately. Because in kidney health, time is not neutral. Every week matters. Here's what elevated creatinine is actually telling you and why the number on the page is only the beginning of the story. Creatinine is a waste product, completely natural, produced continuously as your muscles break down a compound called creatine during normal energy metabolism. This process never pauses. Every movement, every moment of muscle activity releases a small amount of creatinine into your bloodstream. Under normal circumstances, healthy kidneys filter creatinine out of the blood with considerable efficiency and excrete it through urine. Blood creatinine stays within a predictable range, roughly 0.7 to 1.2 milligrams per deciliter for men and 0.5 to 1.0 for women, though laboratory reference ranges vary slightly by facility and by the individual's muscle mass. When those numbers climb above the reference range, it is communicating something specific and important. The kidneys are not clearing creatinine as efficiently as they should. Their filtering capacity, measured as the glomerular filtration rate, or GFR, is reduced. The higher the creatinine climbs and the lower the GFR falls, the more the kidneys are struggling to keep pace with their fundamental job. The question that always follows is why? And the answer to that question matters enormously, because different causes demand different responses. In adults over 60, elevated creatinine most commonly arises from several overlapping sources. The first is the natural aging process itself. Kidney filtering capacity declines gradually with age, decreasing by roughly 1% per year after 40. By the time many people reach their 70s, they may have quietly lost 25 to 30% of their peak kidney reserve, without ever receiving a warning until a routine blood test catches the accumulated decline. The second major driver is chronically elevated blood pressure. Hypertension is one of the most destructive forces the kidneys face because the tiny capillaries forming the kidney's filtering units called the glomeruli, are extraordinarily sensitive to sustained pressure. Year after year of elevated pressure stiffens and narrows these microscopic vessels, progressively reducing blood flow and destroying the filtering structures the kidneys depend on. This creates a damaging cycle where hypertension causes kidney disease and kidney disease worsens hypertension, each condition accelerating the other. The third driver is chronically elevated blood sugar, whether from diagnosed type 2 diabetes or from the pre-diabetic state that affects an enormous proportion of adults over 60 without formal diagnosis. When glucose remains elevated in the bloodstream over time, it damages the delicate capillary network of the glomeruli through a process called glycation, where sugar molecules bind to and progressively stiffen protein structures in blood vessel walls. This mechanism, diabetic nephropathy, is one of the leading causes of kidney failure globally, and it begins long before most people receive a diabetes diagnosis. The fourth driver is dehydration, far more prevalent in older adults than most people realize or expect. As the body ages, the thirst sensation becomes less reliable. A young person becomes thirsty when they have lost approximately 1 to 2% of body water. An older adult may lose 3 to 4% before feeling any significant urge to drink. By the time thirst signals arrive, meaningful dehydration is already present. Add to this the common pattern of deliberately restricting fluid intake to reduce bathroom trips, and you have a population chronically underhydrated in ways that directly and continuously stress kidney function and artificially elevate creatinine readings. The fifth driver is medications, both prescription and over-the-counter, that place direct stress on kidney tissue. This category surprises many people and deserves specific attention in the 5 actions ahead. Understanding why creatinine is elevated in your specific situation is the foundation of addressing it. Now let us move into what you can actually do about it, starting immediately. The first action is deliberate, consistent hydration beginning today. Of all 5 actions on this list, this one is the fastest to implement, requires no prescription and no equipment, costs essentially nothing, and for many older adults with mildly to moderately elevated creatinine will produce the most visible improvement in blood test results in the shortest time frame. The mechanism is direct. The kidneys filter blood, and they require adequate blood flow to do this work efficiently. Blood volume is directly dependent on hydration status. When you are even mildly dehydrated, blood becomes more viscous, circulation through the kidney's microvasculature is compromised, and creatinine, which requires adequate urine output to be excreted, accumulates in the bloodstream. The number on the page rises not necessarily because kidney tissue has been destroyed, but because the kidneys are not receiving the blood flow and fluid throughput they need to work efficiently. The practical solution is drinking water on a deliberate schedule rather than waiting for thirst to signal need. For most adults with mildly elevated creatinine and normal urine output, 6 to 8 glasses of plain water distributed across the day provides a reasonable baseline, adjusted for body weight, physical activity level, climate, and any fluid restrictions your physician has specifically imposed. Herbal teas, particularly dandelion root and nettle, both of which have demonstrated mild kidney supportive properties in the research literature, contribute meaningfully to daily fluid intake. Water-rich vegetables and fruits including cucumbers, celery, watermelon, and zucchini support hydration while delivering additional nutrients. Fluids to reduce substantially include large quantities of caffeine, which carries a mild diuretic effect, alcohol, which is actively dehydrating and places additional metabolic demands on kidney tissue, and sugary sodas or energy drinks, which add glucose and phosphorus loads requiring kidney processing. Set a hydration reminder on your phone for every 2 hours during waking hours. Track your urine color. Pale yellow indicates adequate hydration. Dark amber signals that your body is significantly water deficient and your kidneys are under unnecessary additional strain. The second action is reducing dietary protein, particularly from red meat and processed meat sources. This is the dietary change with the most robust and consistent evidence base in the management of elevated creatinine and early chronic kidney disease. It is also the change that most people find counterintuitive, particularly given the widespread current emphasis on high-protein diets for older adults. But the biology here is clear and unambiguous, and understanding it makes the recommendation feel logical rather than arbitrary. When you eat protein, your body breaks it down into amino acids and, critically, nitrogen-containing waste products, including urea, uric acid, and creatinine itself. These nitrogen waste products must be filtered from the blood by the kidneys. The more protein consumed, particularly animal protein, the greater the nitrogen waste volume, and the harder already stressed kidneys must work to clear it. For kidneys operating at full healthy capacity, this filtration burden is manageable. For kidneys already working at reduced efficiency, as elevated creatinine indicates, the additional load from high protein intake can accelerate the very damage you are attempting to slow. Multiple clinical trials have confirmed that reducing dietary protein in people with early chronic kidney disease measurably slows the rate of GFR decline. The target for adults with elevated creatinine is generally between 0.6 and 0.8 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight daily, meaningfully lower than the 1.2 to 1.6 grams often recommended for older adults without kidney concerns. For a person weighing 70 kilograms, that translates to approximately 42 to 56 grams of protein per day across all meals combined. Plant-based protein sources including lentils, chickpeas, tofu, and tempeh produce less nitrogen waste than red meat for equivalent protein content and are generally better tolerated by kidneys under stress. Fish and poultry in moderate portions are preferable to red meat. Red meat, organ meats, and processed meats should be significantly reduced or eliminated. Start this week by removing red meat from your meals entirely and replacing it with lentil-based dishes, eggs in moderation, or fish. Keep protein portions to approximately the size of your palm at each meal and discuss your specific target with your physician or a renal dietitian. The third action is eliminating excess sodium and hidden dietary salt. Sodium operates on kidney health through a mechanism that creates a damaging self-reinforcing cycle. When sodium intake is high, the body retains water to maintain appropriate sodium concentration in the blood. This raises blood volume. Raised blood volume increases blood pressure. Elevated blood pressure drives higher pressure through the glomeruli, the kidney's delicate filtering capillaries, damaging their structure progressively and accelerating the loss of filtering capacity. For kidneys already working at reduced efficiency, this sustained pressure is particularly destructive. Protein begins leaking into the urine as the filtering barrier breaks down. Creatinine rises further. The kidneys are pushed along a trajectory that becomes progressively harder to reverse. The sodium target recommended by nephrology guidelines for adults with elevated creatinine is no more than 1,500 to 2,000 milligrams per day, roughly equivalent to half a teaspoon of table salt across the entire day, including all food sources. Achieving this target requires shifting attention away from the salt shaker, which most people have already reduced, toward the hidden sodium embedded in processed, packaged, canned, and restaurant foods. A single serving of processed soup can contain 800 to 1,200 milligrams. Bread, deli meats, cheese, condiments, sauces, and ready meals regularly contain amounts that consume the day's budget in a single sitting. The practical approach requires reading nutritional labels on every packaged product, selecting items with less than 140 milligrams of sodium per 100 grams wherever possible, cooking from whole ingredients rather than packets, and replacing salt-based flavoring with garlic, lemon juice, turmeric, cumin, ginger, herbs, and vinegars that add depth and satisfaction without sodium content. Within 2 to 4 weeks of meaningfully reducing sodium intake, most people with sodium-sensitive blood pressure see a measurable reduction, and with it a reduction in the pressure burden their kidneys are carrying every minute of every day. The fourth action is blood sugar management, even if you have not been diagnosed with diabetes. This connection surprises many people. Blood sugar is kidney protection. These are not separate conversations at the biological level. Even without a formal diabetes diagnosis, chronically elevated blood glucose, following repeated large meals of refined carbohydrates, sugary beverages, and highly processed foods, causes progressive cumulative damage to the kidney's microvasculature through glycation. Glucose molecules bind to proteins in the glomerular capillary walls, stiffening and damaging the filtering structures over time. This process operates silently over years, eroding kidney function well before any diabetes diagnosis is formally made. Research on adults with prediabetes, a condition affecting a very large proportion of people, over 60 in 2026, demonstrates that GFR and urine protein markers can already be deteriorating during this intermediate phase. Waiting for a formal diabetes diagnosis before addressing blood sugar is not a sound strategy for kidney protection. The dietary approach centers on three practical principles. First, replace refined carbohydrates with complex fiber-rich alternatives, vegetables, legumes, whole grains, and lower sugar fruits instead of white bread, white rice, pastries, sugary cereals, and sweet beverages. Fiber slows glucose absorption, reducing the height and duration of post-meal blood sugar spikes. Second, distribute carbohydrate intake across smaller, more evenly spaced meals rather than consuming large amounts at once, minimizing the blood glucose peaks that drive glycation and inflammatory stress on kidney tissue. Third, incorporate gentle movement after meals. Even a 15-minute walk following your largest meal has been demonstrated in research to meaningfully reduce post-meal blood glucose by allowing muscles to actively take up circulating glucose. Start today by replacing your breakfast starch with a lower glycemic option, eliminating sugary beverages entirely, and committing to a short walk after dinner. Ask your physician to check your HbA1c if it has not been tested recently. This single test tells you the average blood glucose story of the past 3 months and is one of the most important numbers for kidney protection that many people never think to request. The fifth action is reviewing every medication and supplement you are currently taking with your physician, specifically in the context of your kidney function. This is the action most consistently overlooked, and it may be the one with the most immediate protective potential. The kidneys are the primary clearance route for many medications. When kidney function is reduced, drugs that are normally processed efficiently can accumulate to higher concentrations, sometimes reaching levels that cause direct toxicity to the very kidney tissue responsible for clearing them. Certain medications simultaneously place direct chemical stress on kidney cells regardless of accumulation, causing oxidative damage and inflammation in renal tissue. The most commonly encountered kidney-stressing medications in older adults are non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. Ibuprofen, naproxen, diclofenac, and their related compounds available without prescription and widely used for pain, inflammation, and fever management. Many adults take these regularly and indefinitely without awareness of their renal effects. NSAIDs reduce the synthesis of prostaglandins, which are compounds the kidney uses to maintain adequate blood flow through its own filtering structures. Without sufficient prostaglandins, the kidney's internal blood supply is compromised, particularly in people who are already mildly dehydrated or have reduced baseline function. For older adults with elevated creatinine, regular NSAID use can produce significant and rapid worsening of kidney function. This is one of the most important conversations to have with your physician before your next blood test. Beyond NSAIDs, the review should encompass certain antibiotic classes that require dose adjustment when kidney function is reduced. Contrast agents used in CT scans and angiography procedures where your creatinine level must be known before administration, and every herbal supplement, natural remedy, and over-the-counter vitamin you are currently taking. This last category consistently surprises people. High-dose vitamin C supplementation, certain Ayurvedic preparations, products containing aristolactic acid, and compounds containing chromium or germanium have documented nephrotoxic effects. Your physician can only protect you from risks they know about, Make a complete written list of every prescription medication, every over-the-counter drug, every supplement, every vitamin, and every herbal or natural product you are currently taking, including doses and frequencies. Bring this list to your next appointment. Ask directly whether any of these, given your current creatinine level and GFR, are placing additional stress on your kidneys. This single conversation has the potential to be one of the most consequential you have this year. Now, here's the thing that is critically important to understand about these 5 actions taken together. They do not operate in isolation. Each addresses a different pathway through which kidney damage accumulates and progresses. Hydration optimizes blood flow through kidney tissue. Protein reduction lowers the nitrogen waste load the kidneys must filter. Sodium reduction protects the blood pressure environment the glomeruli operate within. Blood sugar management protects the capillary structures that perform the actual filtering work. Medication review removes hidden chemical burdens that may be actively accelerating damage without your knowledge. When 2 or 3 of these are implemented simultaneously, their effects compound in ways that are greater than any single intervention alone. Lower blood pressure combined with improved hydration delivers more oxygen and more efficient circulation to kidney tissue simultaneously. Reduced nitrogen waste load combined with better hydration improves the kidney's ability to clear what remains more effectively. Stable blood sugar combined with lower sodium reduces the total inflammatory and structural burden on the glomeruli from 2 separate directions at once. The biology is synergistic. The combined impact of multiple protective changes implemented together is meaningfully and measurably greater than the sum of individual parts. This means the approach is not to select the one action that feels most manageable and ignore the others. Implement as many as possible, as quickly as you practically can. Begin with hydration today. It requires nothing except intention and a glass of water. Layer in the dietary changes across this week. Compile your medication list this evening and bring it to your physician as soon as possible. Each layer you add compounds the protective effect of everything already in place. There is a version of this story where the elevated creatinine result goes into a drawer, the follow-up appointment is attended passively, and 3 months later, the number is higher. That version is common. It is not inevitable. There is another version, where the result is received with clear eyes, the weight of it is acknowledged honestly, and then a deliberate decision is made to treat the kidneys with the attentiveness and respect they have given silently to every system in the body for every year of life. Where water is drunk on a schedule, where red meat is reduced this week, where sodium labels are read before purchase, where a walk happens after dinner, where a medication list is compiled tonight. The kidneys are extraordinarily resilient organs with significant reserve capacity. In the early and moderate stages of disease, the stages where most people watching this are likely to find themselves right now in July 2026, they respond meaningfully to the right conditions. The 5 actions covered here are those conditions. They are not dramatic or expensive or complicated, but applied consistently over weeks and months, they change the trajectory of the story that your next blood test will tell. You are the most important participant in your own kidney health. You now have the roadmap. Begin today. Start with a glass of water and the decision that your kidneys deserve better than they have been getting.